Good afternoon to you. It is now 3:06 News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news. Coming up, Susan Crabtree joins us from Real Clear Politics. We're going to talk to her about her latest reporting about the Secret Service and how the leadership of that agency has been interfering with the probe into the July 13th assassination attempt on President Trump. It's a big story. Susan will give us the latest there. Justin Peterson is here at 4:30. He was tasked with being one of the people in charge of Puerto Rico's Financial Oversight Board for years, and he's got some thoughts on all of the chatter about Puerto Rico this week, including how beloved Donald Trump is for his work. We'll talk to Justin Peterson about that. And then Douglas Mackey is here at 5 o'clock. You may remember him as the guy who was arrested and imprisoned for making a meme about Hillary Clinton. He'll talk to us as one lefty late-night host makes the same exact joke, and doesn't look like any charges are coming. You can join us at 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. Less than 5 days now to go. And I got to say, the great debate that I'm privy to on the right, because we're right at the epicenter of it here at WMAL. I got a lot of calls on this, a lot of emails, a lot of friends and family. The discussion is always, what should your attitude be right now? What should your I heard Dan talking about it in his program just a few moments ago. What should your attitude about this election be right now? And if you want President Trump to win, as I clearly do, the attitude should be that you need to, quote, fight, 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 as somebody once said, to make that outcome occur. You have to be as aggressive as you possibly can in terms of getting your friends and your family out to vote. And we live in an environment, by the way, where the more Americans who actually show up to the polls these days, the more likely it is that President Trump is going to win. Because nationwide, among registered voters, there is wide support for President Trump. When you start drilling down to likely voters, this becomes a very, very tight race. And those are the polling numbers we're seeing. But among registered voters, and even people who aren't registered yet, if they live in a state where you can still register on that final day as you head into the polls, like, say, Virginia, that is a group that is wildly in Trump's camp by all of the available numbers. And so when we talk about the ways in which President Trump is reinventing the electorate, it is out there, it is real, you can sense it, and it is detectable in the data. So the more people you actually get to show up, the better it is. And you'll notice, by the way, that Democrats are not actually doing, you know how in prior elections they would run these vote or die. They'd run all these kind of crazy campaigns like, no matter who you are, you have to vote. It doesn't matter, what you, like, their idea was basically just show up, you'll vote for us. The more people who show up, that'll be good for Democrats. They're not doing that now. They're not running generic get out and vote campaigns. They don't have outside organizations who are doing that kind of push. And the reason for that is because they're scared to death that the electorate really is on Trump's side, and that those low propensity voters, if they're pushed more and more to actually show up, they're going to deliver Trump the presidency again. So you're not seeing that. You're also not seeing voter registration drives either from the left. They're not trying to register new people. They don't want new people to register. For God's sake, stay at home, don't register, don't vote. That's their position. And if you want evidence of this, look at what's been happening in Pennsylvania this week. In Pennsylvania this week, in Bucks County, Pennsylvania, pretty famously, you have Democrat people who are wearing voter protection badges. This is what they have, these badges hanging around their necks. They're pretending to be some sort of official election worker. They are not. In tiny little font, right at the top of the name tag, it says Dems, Democrats. But the font is designed, the presentation of the badge is made to look like these guys are official. And they've been hassling people out of line this week. Oh, no, the polls are closed. Take it up with local officials. There's no time to vote. And that Bucks County in particular it's a close county in Pennsylvania. It's considered a bellwether county. It's a place where Democrats have very slim control. Very slim control. But the way that these Democrats are acting in that county is they're trying to suppress votes. They want to foreclose on people voting. And the early voting was supposed to end earlier this week, but thank goodness the Trump campaign and the RNC, they filed suit against Bucks County, Pennsylvania, and said, you can't do this. You can't be booting people out of line. They need to be able to vote. They want to early vote. They're entitled to that. If they're in line, they can cast that ballot. At one polling location, they didn't even close until I think it was 4 o'clock in the afternoon. That was the cutoff for the day. But they said at 1:30 they started cutting people off. They're like, well, we just saw there were too many people online, and we knew that by the time 4 o'clock came around, that the line would still be going. So we figured we'd cut it off at 1:30. Cut it off at 1:30. What is that if not voter suppression? They are suppressing votes in Pennsylvania. And you can be certain that's not the only place they're doing it. On the Pennsylvania front, we have some good news today. Let me start with the slightly good news. Quinnipiac, which is an excellent polling firm, they have discovered that Donald Trump is leading in Pennsylvania right now by a point among likely voters, 47 to 46. President Trump is up against Kamala Harris, 47-46. That is a reversal from where he was a month ago. Not even a month ago, 2 weeks ago. That's a reversal from where he was 2 weeks ago, mid-October. Pennsylvania, 19 electoral college votes, considered one of the most important, if not the most important state for these candidates to win. Kamala Harris has to keep what they call the blue wall for any real path to victory. The blue wall consists of Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan. And Pennsylvania looks like it's beginning to slip out of reach for her. It's still close, 1 point away in Quinnipiac survey. And it comes down to a gender split. In case you were wondering, it very much is about that. This is why the Kamala campaign thought that they could, how do we appeal to men? How do we appeal to men? That was their big push a couple weeks ago. So they threw goofy rocket-kicking Tim Walz, who waves with both hands, out onto stage and said, well, maybe he can do it. Maybe if he plays Madden on an Xbox with AOC, maybe that'll appeal to men everywhere. Well, it's not working. Men, according to this survey, are backing President Trump 57 to 37. 57% of men in Pennsylvania say it's time for Trump. We need him back. 37% oppose. Meanwhile, among women, there's a split in the opposite direction, but it's not quite as intense. For Kamala Harris, it's a 55% support. Donald Trump, it's 39% support. It's close, but men is a bigger disparity than women are. Although we are seeing from people like Charlie Kirk and others, they're pointing out that among the early vote, it does look like nationwide that it's women who are showing up for early voting. So it's so fellas, what does Trump say? Get your fat butt off the couch and go out and vote. Doesn't he say some version of that? I think he may throw a curse word in there or two. But basically, get out and vote. Get out and vote. Stop with the waiting stuff. Just lock in the vote. And but the suspicion, the hope, definitely, is that so many men show up on Election Day, where they often do vote. But this is such an important election. Every vote counts. Men wildly supporting Trump. And if they all show up, he definitely wins this thing. Trump went from plus 11 with men to now a plus 20 in Pennsylvania. That's a lot of movement. In just 3 weeks, Ed Morrissey dug into the numbers more specifically. He said that was a 3-week shift, plus 11 to plus 20 with men. He said, what changed? Well, for one thing, Trump sat with Joe Rogan for 3 hours. Kamala Harris hung out with Beyonce, who didn't actually perform. For another, the Obamas and Hillary Clinton showed up, and they started harassing men, in particular in Obama's case, black men, the brothers, as he said, about their misogyny and racism for not being enthusiastic about Kamala Harris. And Ed adds, one has to wonder where men in Pennsylvania are now after Joe Biden's garbage comment and Trump's response to it. Of course, Trump's response was great. Wasn't that great? Trump went to Wisconsin yesterday. This is the stuff text messages are made out of. Do you experience this? When Trump does something wild like this, do you get text messages galore from all of your Trump supporting friends? Everybody starts chattering amongst themselves. Did you see what Trump is doing? I had the joy. It's a real joy to be the first to share something like that with a loved one, isn't it? I turned to my wife yesterday. We had a basketball practice for my daughter, and I turned to her. I said, hey, do you see what Trump's doing right now? She's like, what? What's he doing? I said, he's doing a press conference from the window of a garbage truck. He's in a garbage truck in Wisconsin. She was howling. She loved it. Loved it. And then on that story, I'm sure we'll dwell on it more today. On that story, can you imagine if that Tony Hinchcliffe comedy routine ends up becoming the reason Trump wins the election? It would be the perfect Trump saga, wouldn't it? Something either mildly distasteful or a little bit off the wall happens in Trump world. The media overblows the whole damn thing. Trump ends up figuring out a way to snatch victory from the jaws of defeat, and the left goes absolutely crazy. They don't even know how to handle it. Amazing. So I mentioned a moment ago that the Quinnipiac survey where Trump's up by just one, that's the slightly good news. Now, are you ready for even better good news? An Echelon survey, Echelon Insight survey, just out this afternoon, shortly before we went to air, of Pennsylvania, has Trump up 52-46 in Pennsylvania. Now, my head spun around when I saw that. I said, what? What was that? 52-46? That's if you've done the math quickly, that's a 6-point advantage to Trump in Pennsylvania. If that's real, I think the election's over. If that's real. Obviously, you've got to vote. Everyone's got to vote. But that's a big deal. The people who handicap the polls, 538, they assess that Echelon is a genuinely trustworthy poll given its past performance. It has a 2.7 out of 3.0 rating for its accuracy. It's one of the most trusted polls that they've found. So the Echelon Insights poll right now does have Trump up by 6. But even trusted firms have what we refer to as outliers. So again, this thing's not over. But as I said at the outset today, the big debate that we have amongst my friends and including here on the show, with listeners call in, everyone wants to talk about it, is what attitude should you have towards the election? And obviously, one of the prevailing things is like we need to play from behind. There's a category of person who says, it doesn't matter, they're going to steal the election anyway. Just out, Satan, get behind me. I'm not dealing with you right now. I'm not dealing with you right now. But there's a category of sincere person who is really doing everything they can to try and win, who says, you have to, basically, they want you to maintain a pessimistic attitude. Partly because they're playing an expectations game with themselves. They don't want to get overly optimistic and then be so catastrophically disappointed on election day. I understand that sentiment. The other is like when you play from behind, the assumption is that you can help whip people up to feel like they have to do more work. But the alternative posture is one of, hey, you're allowed to enjoy this moment, you know. You are allowed to enjoy this effort. You are allowed to go about it with energy and enthusiasm, with some optimism that it is possible that Trump can win this thing and that you can help him do it. You're allowed to have that attitude. And anyone who's ever been on a sports team of any kind knows that when you're at that, there's a kind of a perfect moment where you're both succeeding and you feel that positive energy at the same time as a team. We all know what each other's assignments are, right? You can trust your teammates. You're moving towards that goal, towards that end zone. You know that if I'm just responsible for me, I'll let the other guys do their thing. That's a good feeling. That's a good feeling to have. And talking to people who are very close to the Trump campaign, as I have been, the attitude they like is when you feel energetic and when you feel positive about what's going on. That's the most productive attitude to have. And does that mean we won't be disappointed come next week? No, it doesn't. It doesn't mean that at all. But I do think there's value in maintaining a positive attitude, but actually putting in the work. That's the key. That's the sweet spot. All right, more in a moment. I want to talk to you about all of this, and I want to share all of the available news. I just talked about Pennsylvania, but we have surveys out of Michigan, we have surveys out of Wisconsin, and we have a big election just a few short days away. All right, let's go to the phones. I got Rick calling in from Manassas on line 1. Hello, Rick. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show.
Vinny, how you doing, fellow Italian from upstate New York?
I'm doing great, Rick.
I got a couple of comments. One, when I thought that idiot McAuliffe was going to be our governor, I moved to Sturgis, South Dakota. I came back after Youngkin won. that man is kicking butt. And don't ever trust the Democrats to steal anything. So first time in my life I voted early, and I owe that to Trump, you, Levin, the whole WMA crowd. And I have to tell you, it ain't over until and I was counseled on this word, the horizontally challenged woman sings.
You're right about that.
You got a great call screener, by the way.
He's all right.
So let me tell you.
He's all right. You know the deal with his last name? Because you're a Paisan. You'll appreciate this.
Is he a freaking Italian?
So his last name, like a lot of people, they got chopped off at Ellis Island. The family goes by Inganamort these days because of what they did at Ellis Island, but it's actually Inganamorte, which is great, and it means the man who cheated death, which is
I speak Italian. I lived there 4 years in the military, so I'm a veteran. Morte is death.
Yeah. No, that's the guy.
And I listen to you because you got that good Italian humor. You know what? Plant fakes it. Him and the freaking his a brain, she's a broke. I mean, I love that.
But he's got a vowel at the end of his last name. That must mean he's Italian, right?
Yeah, but it's an E. That doesn't really count. It's a freaking O and a silent E. Look, anyway, I got to tell you, I voted early. We're going to kick some freaking butt here in Virginia.
Yeah.
I'm shocked at what's going on in Pennsylvania. So let me tell you this. If I was in Pennsylvania at 1:30 in the afternoon to vote, they would have had to arrest me and take me out in freaking handcuffs if they told me I couldn't vote because they were truncating the line.
For sure.
That is absolute poo-poo potty.
Yes, for sure. Be an immovable object and capture it on camera. Capture all of this on camera and get it out there.
All the Trumpistas are going to be taking video.
Yeah, amen. Have you noticed everybody is on guard? Like, if you see a cardboard box sitting on steps in the middle of some random state, people are taking pictures, sharing it, asking, what is this? And one of the things I love, in addition to your call, Rick, thank you for that, is I saw that the RNC seems to be all over it. Laura Trump is responding to every little allegation of anything suspicious. They're running it down, asking state officials, what is that? Why is that happening? That's what you want. You want people paying attention because we are. Coming up, Susan Crabtree joins us as the Secret Service's leadership gets in the way of the investigation into July 13th. Hey, good afternoon to you. It's 3:35 here. News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news. Coming up, 4:30. Former member of the Puerto Rican Oversight Board, Justin Peterson, will be here to talk about President Trump, his relationship with Puerto Rico, and what the truth is on that subject, as you hear lie after lie from our media. And then Douglas Mackey will join us at 5 o'clock, the man who was thrown in jail for making a meme about Hillary Clinton. He's going to react to Jimmy Kimmel telling the same exact joke this week, and no obvious charges coming for him. You can join us at 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. How did President Trump get shot on July 13th of this year in Butler, Pennsylvania? The answer to that question continues to escape us, and the Secret Service isn't really helping us get to the bottom of it. In fact, the headline over at Real Clear Politics is Secret Service brass interfered in IG assassination probe. Interfered? Why would they interfere? Susan Crabtree is the writer of that story, and she joins us now. Susan, good to have you back with us.
It's great to be back with you, Vince.
Tell us first and foremost what we know. What's going on with the leadership of the Secret Service and that Inspector General investigation?
Well, there's several investigations, as you know, and the Department of Homeland Security Inspector General is ongoing. They actually hired a team of specialists, some former Secret Service agents who are retired to have the specialties. So they are really digging in, from what I understand. And then this email surfaces to me and also to Grassley's office. So we both each were given a copy of this email that shows that the supervisors were telling all of their employees, hey, if the DHS OIG, the Inspector General, contacts you, you need to coordinate it with us, with their supervisors, and we need to have the proper context and have an organized response. And by the way, people think they know what they do, but only we know what we do. That was the exact quote in the email. And there were other things I can't go into because we wanted to protect the anonymity of the sources. But Grassley is very upset about this, Senator Grassley, and he is the champion of whistleblowers. He wrote the Whistleblower Protection Act, and he wrote a letter to acting director, Secret Service Director Ron Rowe, saying he believes this has a chilling effect, both to any disclosures that the Secret Service agents would make to the Inspector General and also to Congress. It just basically telling them, hey, everything has to go through us if you want to make any disclosures, which is not the spirit or the letter of the Whistleblower Protection Act.
Yeah, no, what it sounds like is they're trying to get everybody on the same page. And limit the amount of candor that any employee of the Secret Service may actually demonstrate.
Absolutely. And, Secret Service agents, the fact that any of them, the current employees, are talking, and the fact that so many people are now, is really testament to how frustrated they are, because I've been doing this for 10 to 12 years covering the Secret Service, and these disclosures don't come easily. There's a reason why they were quiet after the cocaine incident in the White House. I was having trouble getting information about that until the assassination attempt, and they felt like their leadership had failed them, and they put them in a no-win situation.
Yes, for sure. So this is obviously meddlesome, and it suggests that they're worried about the blowback. I guess the range of possibilities is you have leadership that's merely worried that they're going to be blamed for the events of July 13th, or it's something far worse than that they're trying to cover up.
Well, I do have information that I'm pursuing about the inexperience of the individuals that were at fault for the July 13th events. They were two women who are still on leave. Now, one of them, I believe, is an experienced agent, was put in the wrong position, in a no-win position. She should not have been the lead agent for that security site that day. Her background was no more in protective intelligence, which is it's less operational. And, you need to have experience on the presidential detail to be able to be in a position to protect a former president like Donald Trump that has so many threats against him. And the other agent on the Trump detail, a woman agent who was her sort of counterpart, this person, I'm told, was very inexperienced. And I'll go into that in future reporting. But the rank and file, most of the rank and file are devastated by this and do a great job. But there is a reason why these two women and the supervisors did not oversee it properly. Mm-hmm. And every report that has come out from the Independent Review Board to the two congressional Senate and House, the task force in the House and the Senate report, they both have said that this is just inexcusable, that there was this level of inexperience, and then you can layer on top of that the operations, the communications, interoperability, and not working with local law enforcement. Yes. And they're just layers and layers. But I am really thinking that the inexperience is having to do with the leadership. The leadership allowed these two women to be in those positions where they had no business being in.
Definitely. But also, like, for instance, and I think we've discussed this before, Susan Crabtree, on the day of July 13th, there is obviously radio chatter between Secret Service agents. I know that there was problems communicating with the local police, which are awful that was the case. But they had radio chatter among Secret Service agents. And when Kim Cheadle went before Congress, she said, we don't have any of the radio communications from that day. So in a world where, like, my iPhone saves way too many photos of everything, how is it that the Secret Service doesn't have a perpetual storage of all of the audio of their communications?
Well, they do, but when it has to do with the president's protection and the vice president's protection, because that's when the White House Communications Agency gets involved, and they do record everything. So this is again the difference between the protection for a former president who is, broke the mold, Donald Trump,
Yeah.
of any. He's unlike any other former president, and we haven't seen another former president run again in modern history. So, yes, the agents are telling me, the sources in the Secret Service community are telling me that this idea that Ron Rose says, the acting Secret Service director, says to Congress that Donald Trump has the same protection as now, after, in the months afterwards, that the president has, President Biden, that's just incorrect, because there's this key element of the White House Communications Agency that encrypts all of the communications and also records them and facilitates his communication anywhere. And now we have these reports of the Chinese hackers hacking in to the cell phones of Donald Trump, J.D. Vance, and Jared Kushner and others. And there's several on the left too, on Democrats, Kamala Harris, and even Chuck Schumer and some of his aides.
Yes.
But it seems, from what my sources are telling me, it's more lopsided on the Republicans. And I'll tell you to keep a watch on this. There's more to come on that story. And it is, if you don't have protected communications, that's a problem. And from what I understand, certainly with Vice President Harris, they're using very informal meeting organizations, it's not Zoom, but I would say like a Zoom meeting, to communicate on logistics with the Secret Service, and I'm told that's not authorized either. So there's a lot of basic protections that are not happening in these last frenetic weeks. And I was even told that at times, agents trying to protect, the team trying to protect Donald Trump, thought they needed ballistic glass, but they couldn't get it to him. So that's, and as well as manpower shortages all over, because the campaign changes so quickly at the end. But when you're a team trying to protect a man who has experienced 2 assassination attempts, the pressure is on you to perform, and they feel like they are not, Ron Rowe is not saying, hey, in this instance, we need to push back and say we need the ballistic glass, so you got to either wait to have that event or change. It's a very difficult position these Secret Service agents are in, because they feel like they're going to get thrown under the bus if something happens, but they're not following the procedures.
Susan Crabtree, I've been wondering, and you're in a great position to possibly know, what's going to change about the posture of the Secret Service's protection for President Trump if he becomes president-elect? What do they have any plans for that? Are they going to enhance his security in any way should he win next week?
Well, I have been trying to follow up on this idea that he needs a military plane, and from what I understand, there are Air Force One type planes in Nebraska at Offutt Air Force Base, and I'm not disclosing anything that's not available on the internet. And they are not providing those to Donald Trump. And that's something they could do. I understand now, after harping on this for a little while, that it's the DOD's decision. President Biden has said he will give him everything he needs. There's a quote, please, Secret Service, give Donald Trump everything he needs. But they've asked for this military plane, and it's not being provided. So now I need to go talk to the White House and the Pentagon, because they're the ones that are responsible. It's not the Secret Service, from what I understand. They would like to provide him that military plane. So hopefully that comes into play. Hopefully then you can get the White House Communications Agency. Certainly other assets have been provided. You have the counter assault teams are with Donald Trump. Counter snipers are with Donald Trump right now in the detail. So, but it's those two things I'm concerned about, with the threats that we know about out there from the Iranians and others.
One of the things about the president's travel is when he goes someplace, they shut down the airspace to protect him from above too. Did they do that with Trump?
No, I haven't asked that. I can definitely ask. I know that's been a big issue with why they weren't flying the drones for a former president, and drones in for anyone except for tethered drones at Camp David and fixed positions like the White House before the first assassination attempt. So that was because they were concerned that they kept having to work with the FAA and shut down the airspace above. But we are seeing that they are flying the drones now, and they've launched a new division just for airspace, just for drones to train and get their people up to speed. So that's all a work in progress.
Yes.
And again, I think that's a fabulous question. So I will look into it.
I'm always so grateful that you dig into all of this, and I appreciate every answer you find. As far as the threat environment goes, how dangerous is it right now for President Trump and for J.D. Vance? And how do things change, do you think, again, should they win next week?
I think it's exceptionally dangerous. I know you know, the Wall Street Journal broke a story about these drones these fleets of drones that are mysteriously showing up at different bases, military bases across our country. And then we have that at the same time. There's suspicion they're Chinese related, Chinese intelligence, just like the spy balloon. And we know that unfortunately, a $5,000 drone can blow up a $5 million tank in an instant. We see that in Russia. I'm deeply concerned about that. I'm glad that they're bolstering their drone program, but it's a little late right now. So they're still have to train all of their teams for the aerial drones. They have counter mitigation drones, but I don't know if a fleet of drones showed up, and I don't want to create that scenario, but that's that's when I talk to the agents, that's what they're talking about. So I'm concerned about that. I'm also concerned about these threats, the ongoing Iranian threats, but then there's these domestic threats that are ongoing, that are always happening. Matt Gaetz talked about 5 different types of threats against Donald Trump specifically, and unfortunately, I've had those confirmed to me. So that's why I'm especially concerned about the military planes that they provide those to him, and they haven't so far. So I think that's difficult, and also because you saw that he runs into a garbage truck. He's changing his campaign frequently, and that's what's giving, at the end of the campaign, this frenetic pace. The Secret Service agents are running ragged. They call it redlining, and they are absolutely fatigued right now.
Yeah,
and they are. It is. I'm concerned about that too, because
that's a big deal.
There's so much change going on last minute to this campaign schedule.
Finally, Susan Crabtree, I don't know if you know, but has there ripple impact on, because they saw what happened and they want to be a part of the solution? Is any of that happening?
Well, I think we're going to need to see some real reforms at the Secret Service before they improve their image, and so that they're attracting more people than they're losing. Unfortunately, I've heard about a great exodus of retirements, and more are expected. It'll depend on if they do feel like there's a reformer that's put in place, the next president puts in place a reformer. The Independent Review Board echoed 2015 findings from a Blue Ribbon Commission saying they definitely need someone from the outside. Now, I've been told that person could be a former Secret Service person who then went into the military. That might be the best scenario. There are names floating about. I'll probably be doing some reporting about that too in the future. But it needs to be someone from the outside. We've done that for years, so that they don't have this cozy relationship with the president that appoints them. A previous relationship that, as we saw with Kimberly Cheadle and First Lady Jill Biden, it was too close for comfort. She's getting her outside jobs at Pepsi.
Yes.
So they're reliant on them, so they can't tell the truth and really reform and push back if there are some problems with security with the president, and they want to push back and say you need to do things a little bit differently to protect yourself and our reputation. So it'll depend. I really think the recruitment will depend on who's put in place next.
And Susan Crabtree, finally, did you ever establish whether or not Jill Biden was personally responsible for Kim Cheadle getting that job? Is it that direct?
For the director job, absolutely. she was absolutely she was absolutely responsible. I mean, certainly she had to convince Joe Biden to do it, but yeah, I mean I think that's all my sources say that's exactly what happened, and because of that, that calls into question the whole cocaine incident and why they covered that up so completely, and they didn't do a thorough investigation at all, ending it in 11 days after the incident first came to light. So that's the problem with appointing someone that you have a personal relationship with instead of a reformer, somebody who has done this for a living, and has reformed police departments. And there are people out there that have done this, and I have certainly heard of names of former Secret Service agents that have been in the military who are well known in the community, who would be fabulous, and are willing to do it. That's the big thing. I mean, take this agency that really needs a shake up at the top, and we've already seen some of the leaders who are in charge of the decisions to deny the resources to Donald Trump for 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
Some of those people, Mike Platty, have already retired, but it really went farther up with Director Kimberly Cheadle and Ron Rowe as well. So some of these people are retiring, but I'm hearing some mixed bag on who's replacing them. So we need complete wholesale on the 8th floor leadership changes.
Yes, and no more unelected random people like Joe Biden imperiling the country. I think that we can all agree to that. Hey, Susan Crabtree, thank you for your always excellent reporting, and I love chatting with you. Thank you very much.